Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Chase Life with Kelly podcast. As you know, I am your host, Kelly Chase. I've been doing a lot of solo episodes lately, but I had to have this guest on. Interesting synchronicities out in the world. I have mutual friends that knew our guest coming on the show with us, which I'm going to tell this story because it just like, I don't know, just like manifested you on my podcast, really, I feel like. But Britnie Turner, please welcome to the show. I'm going to read a little bit about you so the audience has some context, but hi, thank you for coming here.
Having me, Kelly.
Yeah. So Britnie Turner went from living in her car to buying a private island in less than 6 years. She is now using her island to help heal, elevate, and transform people so they can go heal, elevate, and transform the world. Today, we are going to hear how and why she's doing it. I love it. I
Thanks.
love it. Yes. Okay. But before we dive into that, so I went on like an influencer experience, I guess, like a year and a half ago with Susie Evans, who people know. She's been on the podcast as well. She was on The Bachelor. And she was telling me about her experience. I think she had just gotten back.
Oh, great.
So she was like, oh my God, it was so incredible. Just like the impact that this woman is putting out in the world and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that sounds like, and she was telling me, because she was like, Kelly, that'd be like right up your alley. Like you would love something like this. So it was so neat. And then um, fast forward a few months later, and I was working with my mindset coach, who I've been working with for like the last 3 years. And she had attended a conference and she was sharing her experience at this conference, and she was talking about this man speaker, and he was talking about your recovery.
Mhm.
And she like said, and I was like, why does this sound so familiar? Like this story, because I was like, Susie was telling me this story. And I was like, oh my God. So it was, I believe, your husband who was giving this speech that my mentor was at this conference. So crazy. Yeah. And then fast forward to what was it earlier last like March, I met Becky Osty, and she months later went to your Aerial BVI trip. And I was like, how in the world is this all like syncing up? And
Mhm.
Becky and I became very, very good friends, very close. I know her and her husband just recently came to one of your retreats as well. And I was like, oh my God, I just love it. So I was so happy to like hear back from you when I had reached out to inquire about you having you on the show. So I just feel like it just stars aligned. So thank you.
Fine. It's a sign. You're supposed to come to the island. I think
Yeah,
that's
I think so. I would love to. I
Thank
would
you for having me. I'm excited to talk to your listeners. I've heard so much about them, and I'm just proud of everybody for taking the time to invest in themselves to listen to podcasts like this. And I'm proud of you for taking the time to create it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a lot. It can be a lot, but I love it. I just love connecting with like-minded people. And like I said, I have been doing some solo episodes because I just feel like I have a lot to say. And I'm like, okay, let me just sprinkle in the guest here and there. But yeah, it's been great and super humbling of an experience to have a show that I can just use my voice.
Love that. I love that you're actually sharing it. Too many, especially women, are not taking the time to share the things that they've overcome. And
Mhm.
I like to say, if you've gone through the fire, then you know the way out of the fire, and you can help people get out of the fire faster if you
Mm,
share what you've learned. And so
absolutely.
it's our responsibility to take the time to share with people who could gain value. And you don't have to know everything, but at least I know how to get out of the fire this way. And if it
Yeah,
helps, then it's worth sharing.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So I want you to share your story. Share your story. So wait, you went from living in your car to then buying a private island.
Yeah, just like that, right?
Let's dive into, yeah, just like that. It just happened like overnight.
So easy, no problems, no extra issues. No, that's my real life plan originally was to do mission work in Africa, specifically rescuing kids from sex trafficking. And that was my mission. I thought I was going to live there. And exceedingly long story short, I went through a survival school that had different speakers come in throughout the days and teach us these different really high level lessons. And they had a guy come in and teach Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you've never read that book, it is a classic at this point. And he was really teaching those concepts on how to buy cash flowing assets. And if you do, then you don't have to ask other people for money and you can fund your own dang missions. And I was like, I love that idea. Because I grew up very America poor, one of 6 kids raised on a farm. And I knew I wanted to do mission work since I was 12. As soon as I actually watched a documentary about human trafficking, I realized I could have been that little girl.
Mm,
And even though I didn't have to go through it to be a fighter for it, against it really, for their
right.
freedom, my life wasn't that. And if I was in that situation, I would pray every single day that somebody would do something about it. And so even though I didn't have any money or resources or skills, I could just figure it out and be that person's answered prayer. And so from 12, 13, 14, 15, I went on all these different mission trips across the world. And I got
Mm,
really, really frustrated. I was like the worst missionary because I was just angry. But I was angry because, I dedicated my life to anti-trafficking, but then now I'm seeing kids starving and I'm
mm,
seeing women getting horrifically abused. And I'm learning about incest and how it can be socially acceptable in some of these regions, and lack of education, lack of clean water. Like there's so many issues, and that frustration made me continue to ask those questions that were, how do we actually solve these problems at their root? Which I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that the essence in them on how do we solve problems, and that's really where we create our businesses from.
right.
And so I went through that survival school. I ended up going to Costa Rica. I meet a little girl that's been horrifically sexually abused. And I just went back to she couldn't even speak. She was so abused. Like her vocal
Mm,
cords were destroyed.
well,
I went back to my tent and I got on my knees and I said, God, whatever it looks like, I dedicate my life to figuring this out. And I heard loud and clear, I'm going to take you out of mission field and put you in business. And that's when that speaker came back to mind, like, okay, well, I maybe being in business just means creating cash flowing assets. And
mm,
so it sounds like a weird path, but I bring up this level of detail to share that even the things that were in your heart when you were young are there for a reason. The word desire actually means of the Father. And as long as it's not some freaking weird, as long as it's a pure desire, then
right.
I have to put the disclaimer in there. As long as it's a pure desire, it's probably from God. So you're not crazy for wanting to do this thing. And I love to help people find their purpose. And I'll give you a couple clues. Your purpose is going to take you to heightened levels of anger or sadness.
Mm,
If there's something out there that when you hear about it, just enrages you or it just breaks your heart, it's moving you, which is called passion. And that passion is enough of a fight to be willing to overcome the obstacles that are keeping the issue the way that it is. So other people haven't changed the world in that area because there's obstacles, obviously, but you might just have enough passion to be able to overcome those obstacles. I'm
man.
not saying to use anger or sadness as your fuel, but if you really dig deeper, the reason it's making you angry or sad is because you love so much. You don't want to see suffering happen like that or whatever it is that you're passionate about. And so I go to the school, I'm all trained, and now I'm hearing I'm supposed to be in business. And so at 18 years old, I buy my first house as a waitress, took everything within me to save $2,000 to buy that $147,000 house. That was my down payment on it. And in the process of buying it, I heard about this thing called flipping houses. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that was a newer thing in 2007 when I bought this first house. But the concept was that you can buy this crappy house, put a bunch of work into it, and then when you sell it, you can make like $10,000, which was $1 billion to me as an 18-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wanted to do mission work. And then if you save those chunks of $10,000, then you could have $100,000. And then you could buy an apartment complex and you could make $10,000 a month. The math is wrong on that, but that was what I thought.
Right.
Whoa, I can make $10,000 a month. You know what I'm going to do with that? With $10,000 a month, I could tell everybody to suck it. Now, the reason I want to share that with your listeners is I actually love little 17, 18-year-old Britney's mind around that, because I want all of you to know that if you're listening to this podcast and you have the ability to create wealth to where no one can cap your calling. That's what I meant by suck. I meant you can't cut me off whether or not you like what I did this month or not. Now, oh, I have to go suck up to some donor or some, husband could cheat on me and just be like, what, you're not going to leave because I pay for everything. Like, I'm not saying to not marry well. I'm saying you are a wealth creator and you do not deserve to stay in abusive situations. You are perfectly capable of creating enough value in the world, learning enough skills to make enough money to not only take care of yourself and your family, but also to walk in abundance. And abundance is that excess that now you can help solve the needs of the world. And there's so much need. And if you really are struggling with your purpose or you deal with anxiety or depression, you're not fulfilled. Now, sometimes that's a perspective thing. Sometimes it's a chemical thing. But a lot of times it's not knowing why we're here. If you really need to know and you are struggling to do something meaningful, please come on a mission trip, go see how many people are suffering around the world or in your backyard. And if you so choose, you can do something about it. And that's, to me, one of the hardest things on going on all these different mission trips throughout my career, because I did set out to learn how to flip houses, and I did. Now, I ended up moving from where I bought my house to going to work for these people in Nashville. And when I got fired and had rented that house out, that's why I ended up living in my car. I worked free for some rehabbers for almost a year. I couldn't tell anybody that I was that big of a failure that I was living in my car, but I had some survival skills and I had a really warm sleeping bag and I had a car. So
Right.
I was figuring it out. And after working for a year for them, I learned that business, but I learned that business so that I could be a force for good. And continuing to go on these mission trips every year, I've just been more and more frustrated because I'm identifying more and more issues.
Yeah.
When I come back to, most of my mission trips are overseas, and people are love to hate and be like, we have problems in our own backyard. I'm like, did you find 5 babies in a trash can today? Okay. Yes, we have problems in our own backyard, but they're way more extreme other places. So I walk in a lot of gratitude being born in the country I was born in and level of problems that we deal with. And so all that to say, so frustrated coming back to the US and just seeing how we live to escape here. So few problems comparatively. And we're living to drown ourselves in alcohol, social media, having, sleeping with a million people, telling, are we finally worthy? All the different reasons that people are running away from actually being with themselves and finding center and actually asking, who am I? What am I here to do? The really important life questions. And so I thought, how do we actually play matchmaker from need to resource? Because the resource is living a very depressed life and high level. A lot of people are depressed because they're not walking in their purpose. But if they knew how much need there was of them, then they would activate and feel alive and whole and be able to do something. Anyway, so the whole concept was, how do you wake up essentially this force for good? How do you help people understand they can change the world and stop escaping their real power? And that is when I went from rehabbing houses, doing new construction, building what was just wealth to have cash flow to be free to do missions full time to creating this place. And that's its own story, but I keep talking.
No, I love it. I love that. Yes, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm going to go back and read it now because I'm like, okay, maybe I missed that part.
Yeah, that's very good.
Well, it's just, I mean, I read when I started my whole like self-love personal development journey, I say it was like probably more of like the personal development stuff, right? First. And then I worked one-on-one with a mindset. She was a business and mindset coach. I was like hiring her obviously to like make more money in my business. But we started going deep into like shadow work and all the things. And I'm like, what is happening to me? But all great. I mean, I was just like, I was having these just epiphanies and just that what you just said about like feeling alive. Like I was just like awakening to who I needed to become. And it was just such a neat experience. And I'm like biased because I mean, I am a certified coach too, but like the women that I have worked with over the last 6 years have been just life-changing for me. I mean,
Amazing.
so life-changing, but it's interesting that you said that too. Like when you were younger, it's like you knew what you wanted to do. Like I always tell people, like when I was younger, people ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or who do you want to be when you grow up? And I always said a baby doctor, an actress, and a teacher. Those three things, always. Sometimes a backup dancer, that's what I would throw in there sometimes, but the actress, teacher, and baby doctor. I didn't know the term pediatrician. So went through life. Yeah. Of course, everyone encourages that until it's, you're graduating high school and everyone's like, yeah, but you got to get like a real job, kind of thing. And so all of those things were discouraged and I understood why. And, at the time, my mom had been a kindergarten teacher for 15 years and she was like, it's so political now. It's like, it's not even fun to be a teacher anymore kind of thing. So she discouraged that. And obviously she was like, and we don't make enough money for the hassle and the stress of it all. The acting thing, of course, they were like, Kelly, like, you got to kind of like know someone that's really competitive. You kind of have to like work while you're doing that until you make it kind of thing. And then the baby doctor thing, they're like, do you really want to go to school for like another 8 to 12 years? And I was like, no, not really. So I went into college. No like major picked out until my sophomore year. I was just, had to get my core classes and I should have probably took some personality tests and should figure it out, but I didn't. And I was just like, I don't know, I'll do like my sister's getting a degree in fashion merchandising. I'll just go that route too. And that's what I did. I worked one internship and I was like, don't want to do this. I don't want, like, I like shopping, but I don't want to go design storefronts. Don't want to go do that. So I left and I just didn't the first job out of college, it was like through networking. I mean, a girl had graduated a semester before me and she called me. I was like, hey, Kyle, I know you're graduating soon. There's an opening at this company I'm at. And it was like recruiting. So I went into staffing and recruiting. And then the next position I was in was like account executive, account management, that type of things. And that's where I've been in corporate space since. I like the sales and the marketing and since going through my whole personal development journey, obviously, and becoming my own entrepreneur in certain ways, I like the sales and marketing because it's like running my own business when I'm doing corporate, but everything, like, I felt very disconnected for years. And like you were saying, like chasing guys, like sleeping with a bunch of guys to get your worth and all of that. I just was lost. I was completely disconnected. I had no like relationship with myself. And what you said about avoiding and escaping, I was totally doing all of the above. And then someone woke me up, I guess, to a little personal development world. And so I started reading and like staying in on Friday nights and not going out binge drinking with my friends like I did for years prior to, and, just really started to change my life. And then with the coaching stuff, I started creating, digital courses and I was coaching. And then I'm like, okay. And now I can say, although I didn't become what I thought of a teacher, an actress, and a baby doctor, I'm teaching. I am creating videos. And I was on a reality TV show too, but but besides that, for the career part of it, it's like I create videos, I show up online all the time, and I'm healing people. So it kind of came full circle of what I wanted to do.
And that's what I love. That's exactly what I'm saying is the vision and how it ends up playing out is the journey, and that's the fun part. But don't lose the thing that you love. Always try to take those steps towards it. But the long 3.5 hour long version of my story is like, how in the heck did you get back to what you are doing? Because it just was like sliding door moment of literally somebody walking through the doors at the Cheesecake Factory changed the entire course of my life. And that's the trust factor, which I'm still learning. I'm not
We all
the
are.
not relax and allow. I haven't figured that one out yet. I'm working on that. My middle name is Faith, which is super annoying, because I've had to live by faith a lot. And faith is the opposite of what we want to live by. We want to know. And faith
Right.
is believing in that which is not seen. You know what that's also called? Crazy, It's called
Right.
crazy. And so where's the line of
Oh,
living in faith and believing and crazy? And it's scary to
mm,
live on that edge. And
that
so we really want to encourage you to continue to take that time to find a way to be guided.
yeah.
To me, God guides me as I write. If I sit and I write, just super tough to do when you have a new baby. So how do you find blocks to still find ways to be guided? And everything in my life is called Ariel something. And that really stands for, it's got like 10 meanings, but becoming your highest self, having that perspective on knowing that life is greater than this high or this low, and really creating things with excellence. And so I've got a really, I don't know, a new favorite quote, which is beautiful as the day the genius finds out they ain't crazy. And
Mm,
it's not my quote, but my coach told me that. And I want to encourage you, because a lot of you who have these desires in your heart from the time you were little, even like the baby doctor thing or the teacher, like all those things, you're going to feel crazy until you're not. And whether or not you read the Bible, there is a story in the Bible about Noah. And again, he was told by God to build this ridiculously huge boat, and it's going to rain, it's going to flood the whole earth, and everybody's going to die. How do you think his neighbors felt about him? This guy spends 120 years building this ridiculously massive boat, and it had never rained before. Okay, water's going to come out of the sky, you know.
mm, mm.
So he looked like an idiot, and his sons probably really struggled to find wives, all those things, because he's the boat guy, until he looked like a genius. And so when you're going through designing your life, actually being intentional with it and forging your own way, and trying to be guided, just remember you might have to look like an idiot until you look like a genius. And if you're truly doing this not for ego, but for the service of humanity and walking in your purpose, being part of something bigger than yourself, then does it really matter if you always look like an idiot?
Right.
Does it really matter? Because poor Nikola Tesla didn't get any credit till he's way beyond dead, created all these things and died like feeding pigeons in a park or something like,
Gosh, yeah.
but he's since changed the course of humanity with his inventions, and you may or may not ever get credit for the things that you design. And so what are you really doing this for? And if you can create that solid foundation inside of why am I doing this in the first place, then it's not going to really matter who loves or hates you, what the headlines are about you this week, what person comes in and out of your life. All these people are going to come in and out of your life, but you are who you are. You're here for a reason, and you are connected to source, no matter what other external relationships are acting right this week. And if you start with building this really strong foundation on who you are and why, again, you're always going to be discovering this, then you're going to have a lot less of a rocky journey in whatever you set out to create.
Mm, I agree. I love that. Listen up, everybody.
Well, I
Um,
look like an idiot. So I'm on my journey, building all these houses and completely revitalizing entire regions of these forgotten and abandoned areas of town. And I was doing it to practice revitalizing different areas overseas because I met parents that have sold their kids into trafficking, knowing what's going to happen to them. But they're that economically desperate that they in their minds, they had no other options. And so that
wow.
was my way of building wealth at the same time trying to learn a skill that would be applicable overseas. And I really got good at it. And I finally, after continuing to go on mission trips, I just said, God, how do I go from doing what I'm doing here to doing this overseas? And I heard loud and clear, buy an island. And I was like, an island? What the heck does island have to do with anything? And then I sat down, I went into the fort of my office and I started getting these amazing downloads and I mapped out how you'd use an island to change the entire world. And I really studied, again, why are people so disconnected? Why are people still suffering? And yet the most abundant nations in the world are suffering from these lack of connection issues. And that was what I designed it around. How do you create a space that helps people to heal, really find themselves? Because if you actually find yourself, you will find something worth loving. We
Mhm.
spend so much time hating ourselves and attacking ourselves and speaking so negatively to ourselves. And it's an absolute aggressive a waste of time.
Yeah.
There are people that need you out there. So, how do you help people heal, find themselves, like themselves? And that to me means really elevating yourself and finding that alignment of why am I making money? What is it for? Why am I in this relationship? How does it make sense for the rest of my dreams? Why am I needing to be healthy versus just hot, seeking to look like this cover of a magazine? Or does health and wellness actually integrate into my purpose? And now I have a why behind it. What is the point of all these different things that we spend so much time thinking about or working towards? How do you create that underlying why? So again, this space helps people heal, elevate, and transform themselves so they can heal, elevate, and transform the world. And what's crazy is you can do that with a resort. I host
Yeah.
my own summits here, and we also host healing summits for 4 times a year. We have healing summits for struggling veterans and first responders, most struggling with suicide. Um, and to watch their entire lives change in 5 days is nothing short of magic. And it's really only so much I could have created, but so much of it was guided. The how to bring this place to life. Because when I first got it, everybody's like, Britnie, people use islands to go party. Have you not heard of what other people do with islands? And I was like, yeah, but there's something about this place. And so I created this immersive environment. When I found it, I knew it was the one because there's something very sacred about this specific land. I honestly don't know how all that works, but there is something really different about this space. But then I was able to bring it to life with, the activities that connect you back to nature. We have only this beautiful, healthy food. We have all of these different activities that, again, are feeding your conscious and your subconscious to reconnecting. And then with that connection, you find your purpose and then you find your fulfillment. So it's been amazing to watch. And the island itself I've been through a lot buying it. I've been through a lot bringing it to life. I've been through a lot. Like when I first got it, it got hit by the strongest 2 hurricanes to ever go through the Atlantic. And then when I finally had a grand opening date and was ready to open the doors, the day of our grand opening was the day the pandemic hit and closed the borders for 9 months.
Yeah.
How could the travel industry, the one thing I go all in on, got so affected? So it has been a lot. And there's been some crazy adventures of just what does it take to bring an island to life. Honestly, I need to have a reality TV show for what it took to do this. But it's been finding that purpose, keeping it in front of you, and finding a way to weave it into every single thing that you do. So what are those elements you're really going for? And then how can you put that into anything you've been entrusted with? So before I had an island, a 45-acre island, I practiced on my Airbnbs.
Right.
How do I help people do these things with this level of an asset? How do you do it with your voice on a podcast? How do you do it with your business? All of the things you've been entrusted with, you're stewarding. And if you can do something, to me, if you're being a force for good with those things, you're gonna be given more.
Mm, I love all of that. Okay, so tell us more about the actual retreats that you host at your lovely island. That looks amazing.
When I first started, so I literally went from living in my car to becoming a deca multimillionaire. I think I was worth like $40 million at 24 years old. And that's not a brag. I'm telling you, I went fast. I'm good at the for-profit business world. And when I got into it, I just wanted to do mission work, as you know. So when I first started out in business, everybody told me, "Oh, Britnie, you're kind of like a tree hugger. You just care too much about people and the planet before profit, and therefore you're never going to be successful. Like you have to be more cutthroat. You have to know like this is for money, and you should just probably be a nonprofit." And I was like, I feel like you can do good and be a for-profit. I really think you can help people if you just do things a little differently, like mindfully. Well, what do you mean by mindfully? Like you care about your impact on not only people who use your stuff, like buy your stuff, but where you sourced it from and like what it does when they do buy it. What does it do to the world? Like thinking through all these layers. And I just have always had these kinds of thoughts. But I have been called crazy, stupid, you're an idiot. This is not how you do business, Britnie. And I was like, well, I don't really want to do business anyway. I want to do mission work. I want to save babies. Like that's all I've ever cared about. And so if I have to be in business, I'm still going to do good with it. And I'm living to tell you, you can do those. You will have to ease in your initiatives in your for-profit business to be able to pull that off. But as I learned a lot about business, I studied people who were way farther ahead of me. Who are the billionaires? What is their life like? And I saw a lot of people I didn't want to be like at the time. I think our wealthy world of people have changed a lot in the last 15 years, but people just cared about money and they had nothing else. And I was like, oh, what is that really success? Yeah, that's the definition of success. Well, I'm going to make my own definition of success. So my definition of success means being in a happy, loving relationship, having a healthy, functioning body, having impact that I'm proud of in and where I want to, having more than enough than just barely paying my bills. And so it seems to have different areas of your life that need to be in alignment to truly be successful to me. And so I created the Elevate Summits that we host on Island to help people who are maybe struggling with one of these pillars that make up what I call deep wellness. So to really like have this full success in your life, I call that like living in deep wellness. And so if you're crushing it financially, but you're sucking at your relationships, then how do you change your whole life in 5 days? Nobody has 20 years to do all this stuff. So you can come to the Elevate Love Summit. If you are doing great in your relationship, but you have just always struggled financially, then you'd come to the Abundance Summit. If you have no vision for your life at all and you need to cast a vision and get clear and then turn that into a life plan that all the other things will follow, that's the Dream Summit. And so we've got 5 of them. And it starts with dream. And then again, that's for clarifying your vision. Abundance is now that you have a vision, how do we fund that? How do we remove all the blocks that have ever held you back financially? And then we've got presence, which is learning how to hear and be guided. That one's actually a silent retreat as well. So we have teachings, but the guests are silent, which has been unbelievable breakthroughs in the science behind those and what people are experiencing. Super fun. That one's all women.
Okay.
And then we've got the Strength Summit, which is how do I align my body to the long-term vision of my life and tweak all the reasons that I binge eat, or now that I've had a baby, my hormones are different. How do I fix that? Like learning, it's like a hyper learning around aligning your body with your long-term vision of your life and getting it in order. So that one's in January, which is really fun. And then we've got the Love Summit, which is a couples retreat, healing and elevating that relationship. My husband, my now husband, um, and I have created our nonprofit together. So I started it when the island got annihilated by the strongest hurricane in the history of mankind. And I just realized everybody sucks at responding to hurricanes. Like, why are all these nonprofits and why is the government so not getting people what they need? And when you have the gift, I call it the gift of negativity, meaning you can see everything wrong with freaking everything. That's actually a gift, ladies. If you have that too. No, you share what you're seeing that will affect people around you.
Yeah.
So for me, I can see everything wrong with everything all the time, but I say it's because I can see it better. Like,
Yeah.
see the higher level standard of what could be, and let's just get to that instead of being really negative about it. So, yeah, seeing how bad everybody else was, I started my nonprofit to help people after disasters because I met families that had no roof over their head, and these single moms were taken in by people, and they said, "Yeah, I'll give you a roof over your head, but I get your daughter." And that's unacceptable to me, for people to function in that level of desperation and not get the help they need. So I started this nonprofit, and I was still every day thinking of that little girl that was so horrifically sexually abused. I'm like, how do I get back to that? Why does an island have anything to do with this God? Like, how do all the pieces really come together? And then I actually met my now husband on a rebound date, which is hilarious and its own really long story. But I was like, this guy has no potential. He's perfect. I'm gonna go out with him to get over somebody else. And he likes to joke that
Rebound.
I rebounded all the way down the aisle, didn't I?
I love it.
Yeah, he was an alcoholic, Green Beret, military, um, with all the problems. And I was like, oh, so
Project.
God, yeah. No, I know better than to do that. I'm not that girl, but he was really fun to hang out with, and we just kept having fun. And then another hurricane hit. It hit the Bahamas, and he asked if he could come with me. I was like, sure, security. But
Sweet.
that's when I saw him wake up. I saw
Mm.
him smile. I saw this person go from living to escape that I was literally just going, I've never done anything like that, but this was a big breakup for me. Never just gone on dates, but this was the thing. And he went from just living to escape and drink his life away to really, really being good at helping, because the group we went with still sucked at helping. And watching him like watch and try to like follow. And then he just said, screw it. And he took over the mission, and he just was like on it. And it was like super hot. And I was like, wow, do you have any friends that would like this too? And he said, yeah, all my friends have the same skills I have, and they would love this. So we started integrating these veterans or active military too into these disaster responses. And it was really interesting to watch two things. One, his friends came out, and a couple of them came out and had to turn right back around, even though they were super excited. And they had like these PTSD episodes
Mm.
of disasters can look just like war.
Right.
I was like, dang, that sucks. And then I also watched my husband go through the entire retirement process. And I watched how this 20-year veteran, military guy, barrel-chested freedom fighter, Green Beret, think of himself as this incredible hero, to when you go through the retirement process, they take you through all these tests and they say, hey, here's how jacked up you are. You're X amount of disabled. You've got PTSD, TBI, da 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 da, and here's your pills. And if you don't take them, you're probably going to become a problem to society, and it's going to get worse as you get older. And so he went from hero to freaking zero on all this prescription medicine, and like I tell him, it's terrible. I was like, you're like talking to a dead robot. I don't even know who you are. What is going on? And so what we have, an extremely long story short, we've created a program called Heal the Heroes, and my husband is hero one. So I've got my entrepreneur brain who sees need, all the struggle across the planet. And at this time, I'd already seen him go and rescue kids from trafficking. Super awesome. Dream freaking come true. No one is as good as his people group. And now he wants to freaking kill himself and is attempting. No. So I've got my entrepreneur brain saying the most capable, qualified people for the dream in my heart and all these issues across the planet are killing themselves. No, not on my watch. And I use all this entrepreneurness to solve the problem. How do we fix it? And so we created this program called Heal the Heroes with literally all the answers we found out from my husband's struggles and what actually works. How do we fix this mindset? How do we overcome addiction? How do you destroy the labels when you're used to being told who you are and what to do because you're brainwashed by the military? Sorry to say it that way. I'm just saying it. Passionate about it. They've told you who you are forever and who you are, why you're worth it, and now they're telling you you're broken and you believe it. These qualified doctors are telling you and you believe it. How do you get them to actually believe a different story than you're going to end up homeless?
Right.
You're going to end up in jail, just like all the other veterans. That's not the story that I know is the destiny of these warriors. So
Right.
we created Heal the Heroes. They come to the island and we share with them. They always think that we're here to steal their kidneys because it's a free trip for them. They're always, who is this chick? Why is she talking to us? Da, 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 da. And they're so like cold ice the first day. It's so funny. And I tell them, like, don't worry. There is a catch. I promise you there's a catch. Oh, well, I knew there was a catch. Well, what is the catch? And then I play them a video and it's them rescuing kids, pulling people out of earthquake collapses, getting people out of fires, disasters, all these things. So with our Heal the Heroes program, in less than 3 years, we have rescued over 8,000 people with our heroes, which is amazing. All of which I can actually tell you have been suicidal in their lifetime. And so it's been so cool to show them, no, there is still need for you. The lie that your mission died when you left the service is ridiculous. You're now
Yeah.
qualified for the real world issues that if you can create your own mission, you can take the time to be guided, then you can activate into your calling. And so we've been repurposing these struggling veterans and first responders and redeploying them, as a phrase we came up with is called the Humanitarian Special Operators. So they're special operators before, now they're humanitarian special operators. So it's super effective, super badass. It's amazing. It's been the coolest thing ever to get to design and use my skills for, of like, I don't have any of the skills they have, but I'm really gifted at organizing all these different pieces. And so I want to encourage you that how cool it is that God can put these seeds in your heart when you're 12.
Yeah.
And then it comes all the way back around through these crazy chains of events. And then you can literally be called commander with no military background over Green Berets, Navy SEALs, JSOC, like all these amazing warriors. And I'm only commander to be able to be the brain behind how to activate into the calling God gave me at 12 with these people who wouldn't even be here had it not been for the opportunity to serve that gives them enough knowledge that they are still valuable. Which of
Yeah.
course they are, but there's so many lies that we believe. And in my experience, they are struggling with what we all struggle with. They've just actually been handed a mission their whole life. The rest of us just had to figure it out. And so when it's taken away from them, it's like a heightened level of lack of purpose, which
Right.
throws them into all the other things. And so that is
Wow.
what we do with aerial recovery. It's really effective. I honestly can't believe it hasn't been done before. I think people have tried to throw these guys and girls into the situations, but without the healing program, we have a year-long healing program that starts on the island. Without that healing program, they can't function there very long.
Mm,
That's super cool.
that is so cool.
Thanks.
It is. It's really neat. I just want to be inside your brain. ways. Oh, that is incredible. I mean, so for the aerial recovery, how do these people find you or you find them
Yeah.
and do you like seek them and invite them in or do they?
It's a nomination process. So you can nominate anybody you know that's
Oh,
struggling, and everybody has different levels of struggle. Our promise is not that we will fix all your problems. Our promise is that we provide healing through purpose. And so we're really good. Remember, I told you I love helping people find their purpose. I'm like a ninja at purpose. And I
yeah.
have to be a ninja because I myself have struggled with depression and all the same thoughts. And I have stood on the balcony of the 14th floor, ready to jump multiple times at the lowest point of my life. And it's something that I had to find my why so much to want to live. And it sounds so like ridiculous. Oh, you've got this great life. You know how many times I thought about these cliffs? Like it's suicidal thoughts don't go away forever in my experience. You just get better tools at fighting it. And you get better truths to believe instead of the lie that the world is better, that you're not here. And
Mm,
so I'm so glad you're doing this podcast and you're talking about the things that matter so that people do want to live, because the forces for good are asleep.
yeah.
Suffering is continuing because they're asleep.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. That just made me teary-eyed. Thank you. Hmm.
Yeah.
With aerial recovery, is it both female and male or just male?
It's female and male. We have separate platoons for each, though. We don't need anybody hooking up. You're here to heal.
Yeah, right, right.
Level of trauma and healing is so but also
That's funny.
most of the women have dealt with sexual abuse as well, from the military. And so for them to heal, it's really needs to be a safe space for them to come out and then reconnect. Obviously, they work together on missions and stuff with us, but the healing is lit. The kind of things that come out and leave the dark box of what they've been shoving things into for decades, um, has just been incredible to be witness to. For me, I've learned so much because it's been fun not being a professional at this, and just being a
Mhm.
raw, deeply caring person that's here to help. But the biggest thing we do is just share them with the truths. So,
Yeah.
what are the truths that you need to listen to for our listeners? And at my lowest point of my life, when I was in an abusive marriage, and he convinced me that I was better off dead and the world was better off without me. And I hungered to die. I had to come up with a better voice than the one inside, because that one inside got dark. And I really couldn't even be alone with those thoughts. Uh,
Mm,
and so I listened to things like your podcast to give me new tools, to give me new truths, to be able to stand on, to battle those thoughts and to get back onto it. And that's way before aerial recovery. And so it's like, question I also want you to write down, if you're somebody that thinks about these things, is what happens if I did? Because again, it's really believable when you're in the moment. I don't know if you've ever struggled with this, but if you're in it, like you really do believe that you're doing the world a favor. And now I can look and see 8,000 people wouldn't be here
mm,
had I given up then. Had I jumped in 2017, I wouldn't have met Jeremy in 2018. 8,000 people wouldn't be here. He wouldn't be here. Wouldn't have done the island, the ripple effect of all the people that affected. The ripple on the ripple on the ripple is what I really want you to think through. I have a beautiful, perfect little baby boy now. He wouldn't have had this life. And so there's so much that happens if you do and if you don't. But you're
yeah,
going to die anyway. Just don't rush the process.
right. Absolutely. Yeah, don't rush the process. I agree.
Process.
There is too much. I mean, yeah, you're right. I think there's big things that happen if you do and if you don't.
Mhm.
Because but we want you here. Yeah. That is just so beautiful. I just love that you like when you watched the documentary when you were 12, like, was that something like were you sitting in your family living room and like your parents were watching the documentary and you watched it with them?
Yeah, my grandma shows it. So we're super sheltered homeschoolers, and my grandma comes down and plays this video. And the opening scene is this 8-year-old being driven to the creepiest motel in the world to be, shoved in a room with Jabba the Hutt, essentially. And they slam the door and she's screaming. And then it ends with her, beat up and in a container ship crossing the ocean. And then somebody like hijacks the container ship, and her and 50 other girls all die in the back of the container ship. That's the end. And I'm like, there's not a happy ending. And the problem is there's not. And the
Mhm.
bullcrap situation is people aren't even looking for them. Like,
Right.
we are sadly one of the only rescue orgs in the whole frickin' world that actually do undercover operations and rescues. Now, there are police that are doing it, but this is not a major focus for them because people aren't even willing to talk about sex trafficking. They go la 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 la. And if you're one of those people who I can't hear about it, just makes me too sad, please pull your hands down and know if the good people won't talk about it, then there won't be even consequences for the bad people.
Yeah.
It's so easy for us to find bad guys and find these people being trafficked. It's crazy easy because their walls aren't up, because they're not even worried about it, because people aren't talking about it.
Well,
It's insane. The movie Sound of Freedom is the first time it actually became an understood national thing at that level.
yeah.
And my gosh, the backlash he got for that movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Stupid.
Mm. When you are okay with the trafficking, like, do you get, I don't know, like, is there like, do you get what types of like pushback or like do people who are highly powerful that are in cahoots with these types of things, like, how do you handle that type of thing?
There's strategies for all the things. Uh,
Yeah.
One of the
Like, how do
the
they not shut you down? Like, are there people trying to shut you down?
yeah, they tried to. Oh man, the guy from Sound of Freedom, the backlash he got, literally, we're finding out that somebody literally said, "Here's a couple $1 million, destroy him." Pedophiles are very organized. People who love the trafficking, people are making that kind of money. It's a lot of money. It's a drug you can keep reselling. And the more we dehumanize people, the more fine they are with it. So, and sometimes they're like, oh, well, it's not my daughter, or it's somebody from Honduras, or somebody from wherever other country that they just think lower of, which is awful. But no, we have strategies for all those things. And, the sad part is that most of the people who are going to other countries to rape these children are Americans. And so that's why we are so invited in by a lot of these governments, is because they need our American men's faces to be able to go in and pretend to be bad guys. They don't actually do anything bad, but they pretend to be bad guys so they can get all the information so they can make the arrest. But it's so normal that an American would go there to buy it that they can get right in, you know.
Wow.
So that's why we're invited so many places, is because Americans are already doing this. And so we are very pissed off at that fact and are doing something about it. And I have had a lot of women, especially, they're like, Britnie, you're an empath. You can't even watch PG-13 movies. You get scared and sad, and you're such a deep feeler. You care about bugs. Wow.
I
Really do. They deserve life. Everything
don't
does.
kill them. I don't kill them. I scoop them up and toss them outside.
Mosquitoes, God's gonna have to deal with me later, but
Yeah, okay, well, I kill those
we have to
ones.
go. But other than that, I just care about life. I value life. And they're like, how in the world are you in the middle of leading this? And the answer is, and I want to encourage those people listening to this, for the people who are like choking up even thinking about their calling, is I would be more sad to do nothing.
Yeah.
And I know and I probably cannot stop all of the trafficking across the entire planet in my lifetime. But by God, I'm going to do it for the one. And if I did it for the one, and I spent my whole life doing it for the one, then it was worth it. And you have to settle that in your heart. It's not for the numbers. Now, I probably won't get a lot of donations just doing it for one in my entire lifetime. But that child is worth it. I could have been my baby. It could have been me. Could have been you. And I would pray every single day that someone would do something about it. And so you got to really settle in your heart again. We live in such a culture for the likes, for the follows, for the views, for the shares. And so it's super hard to not just kind of function that way. But when it comes to purpose, if you can truly settle it in your heart that you're willing to do it for the one listener that needed that one piece of advice, then all of your podcasts were worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever you set out to do.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know it's like sometimes you just need to hear things like that and just remind yourself helpful reminders that no, this is why. Like even I don't get a lot of like commentary, I don't get a lot of DMs from my podcast and everything. But the few that I do, and they're like, I listen often and, or you said this on your podcast and it just like really shifted things for me. And I'm like, that's why I'm here. Like, that's
Yay.
what it's all about. And, honestly, I launched this podcast in 2021 and I took a couple of breaks, and a part of me kind of, I guess, I don't know, shamed myself in a sense for taking the breaks, because I'm like, well, that's time that I took away from affecting people, impacting other people's lives. But I probably was, I honestly think I was just kind of like getting out of alignment with like where my goal and where my focus was going. I kind of maybe got a little in the noise of things. And so I was like, instead of just doing the podcast, like almost like forcing myself to do it, I'm just going to take the break and reset, realign. And then I kept finding myself coming back to, I need to do this again.
Yeah.
And then it's like something else would happen. And I was like, okay, let me take a break again. And then what was it, like a year ago now, a year and a half ago now, I was like, no, I need to like do this again. So it's like, it just keeps coming back to me. And even like certain things, I don't know, like certain ideas, I wanted to create like a new Instagram account and just do like business, like it's very, very basic business coaching for like online coaches. And I started the account and I was not, but I had sat on this idea for 2 years probably. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll just keep like doing stuff on my main page or whatever, or just use the podcast, whatever. And then I was like, Kelly, just do it. And so I did it. And I did not nurture it at all. And I was like, well, there's your answer. At least you said, like, you did it. You gave it a try and it didn't feel right. Like, it just didn't. Like, and maybe it was just the way I was doing it. Like, I like to talk about the things, but here we are. Like, I think I could just funnel it through the podcast and not have to create more work for myself.
Right.
Let's put it
Yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah,
let's work smarter, not harder.
for
But
sure.
but the idea just kept coming back to me. So I was like, Kelly, if you don't act on this, it's going to be haunting you for the next 2 years. Like, let's go. But
That's one of my favorite quotes is Les Brown. It's when you're sitting there on your deathbed, what are the ghosts of the dreams of the, ventures that sit there with angry eyes looking at you saying, we came to you and only you could have brought us life. Now we must die with you forever. So it's kind of a creepy way to think about it. But my top advice for people looking for their purpose, this will be our last thing able to share. If you are looking to find your purpose, if you really want some clarity and direction in your life, I highly recommend writing your eulogy. I was forced to write it when I was 17, and I thought it was like weird, morbid, dark. I don't know. But when I wrote it, that's the day that I woke up. And even
wow.
though I had been a really good person because I wanted to do like mission work. Can't really get away with doing bad stuff then. I was a good person, but being good is not living intentionally.
Mm.
And that was the day I realized if I really want to have the life that is meaningful to me, I'll start having that conversation. I'll get past my insecurity to do the podcast. I will stop hiding, essentially. I don't know why so many of us women wake up insecure as hell every day, but it's super weird and
Right.
not helpful to the rest of the world, you know? And so the understanding of my mortality made me have extra courage to do the things I really want to do and also be able to say no to the things that don't really matter. In my one chance on earth, did I really care about that or did I really care about this? So now I'm going to start doing it. So writing that eulogy is the greatest tool for direction and clarity that I could ever encourage you to do. And from there, start designing your life to make that story true.
I love that. Yeah. You just like start reverse engineering in a sense. Like
The military term is backwards planning.
backwards planning. We like that too. I love that. That is great advice. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Tell everyone where they can find you and
you.
yeah, and how to like if they like apply for the Elevate, like how they would look
Yeah,
into all.
so you follow me at Britnie Turner, Britney spelled weird, on all social platforms. So it's Britnie, Britnie Turner. And it's also BritnieTurner.com. You can find all of my summits there. You can find the island there. You can find anything that I'm teaching or sharing on there. And I also have a podcast too, which I think you'd like. So it's mostly funny, and it's got a lot of mindset for going from broke to awakened in life. So it's called Broke to Woke. And so we'd love to have you guys as listeners on that as well. But I'm so excited about your podcast, Kelly, and all your listeners. Thank you so much for having me. This is just such a great idea, and I'm really grateful you're doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your story and for doing what you do.
Thank you.
It's incredible. I love it. Inspiration. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, girl.